Sam thought he knew his wife inside and out, until one quiet morning, a simple smile changed everything. Little did he know, that smile would unravel a series of hidden betrayals right under his roof. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen blinds of the Collins family home in Chicago, Illinois, casting striped shadows across the granite countertop where Sam Richardson stood, brewing his morning coffee. Steam rose from the dark liquid as he added a splash of cream, his wedding band glinting faintly in the early light as he stirred. The house was quiet in that special early morning way, a silence that once felt calm, but lately seemed to hold a tension he couldn't quite place. Sam glanced at the clock, 7:15 a.m. Over 11 years of marriage, he had grown accustomed to the rhythm of their mornings, a routine that once felt as comforting as a familiar melody. His wife, Linda Richardson, would be up soon, moving through her morning routine with a newfound, almost restless energy that had become her habit in recent months. Right on cue, he heard the soft steps on the carpeted hallway upstairs, followed by the creak of their bedroom door. But their routines, usually so stable, had begun to shift. Small, subtle changes started nagging at Sam, like a whisper he couldn't ignore. The shower now ran longer than usual. Linda's mornings had expanded to include extra time for makeup and the selection of clothes she hadn't worn in years. She seemed especially drawn to new outfits for her frequent outings to a high-end Italian restaurant, La Bella Verde, known for its stylish patrons and upscale atmosphere, where she often dined with friends. Sam took his coffee to the breakfast nook and opened his laptop to check emails. As a lead architect at a prestigious firm, he had an important presentation coming up that demanded his attention. Yet, as he scanned the blueprints, his thoughts kept drifting back to the recent changes at home. The house, which once felt warm and lively, seemed to carry a different air these days, quieter, almost hollow, even when Linda was home. The sound of heels clicking against the hardwood floor brought him back to reality. Linda appeared in the kitchen doorway, looking effortlessly put together in a tailored gray skirt and light blue blouse. Her auburn hair, styled in soft waves, framed her face, bringing him back to the days when she'd style it for their date nights, back when those nights were still a part of their routine. Morning, he greeted her, watching as she moved straight to the coffee maker, her phone already in hand. "Oh, morning," Linda replied absently, her fingers flying across her phone screen as she typed out a message. A small, private smile touched her lips, the kind of smile Sam realized he hadn't seen directed at him in quite some time. "Breakfast?" he offered, recalling the weekends they used to spend cooking together, sharing plans over coffee in the Sunday paper. "No time." Linda grabbed a travel mug from the cabinet, quickly filling it and dropping a bag of chamomile tea inside, a recent switch from her usual black coffee. "I've got a big presentation today. The Johnston account has some last-minute revisions before the client meeting." Sam nodded, noticing she still hadn't looked him in the eyes. "Another late night, then?" "Probably." She took her pale green travel mug and glanced at her phone one more time, a habit that seemed to have grown lately. "Don't wait up, I'll probably grab a bite with the team." "I could bring you lunch," he suggested, testing the waters. "There's that new Vietnamese place near your office. Everyone's talking about it." For a moment, Linda looked up at him, her gaze softening slightly. But it was brief. "That's sweet, but I've already got a working lunch scheduled. Maybe another time." Sam was about to respond when Linda's phone buzzed, and he noticed the slight smile returning to her face as she angled the screen away to type out a reply. "I should get going," she said lightly. "I don't want to be stuck in traffic." She grabbed her purse from the counter, checked her reflection in the hallway mirror, added a quick touch of lipstick, and gave her hair one last fluff. "Have a good day," she called as she left, the door closing behind her with a soft click that seemed to echo in the quiet house. Sam sat alone, his coffee now cooling, trying to pinpoint the moment when things had started to feel off. The changes hadn't happened overnight. It was like erosion, small, unnoticeable shifts that slowly wore down the foundation. In hindsight, he could trace signs he hadn't fully registered. There was her phone, for instance, which now had a passcode he didn't know. Her closet had filled with new clothes, always with the tags already removed. She took phone calls in whispered tones from another room, her voice lowered to a near murmur. Each of these details, on its own, could have been brushed aside, but combined, they painted a picture he was struggling to ignore. At work, Sam found himself unable to focus. The blueprints for the Kensington Tower project blurred as memories of his mornings with Linda replayed in his mind. Each recalled moment seemed to hold a different meaning now, as though he were piecing together a mystery he hadn't even realized he was in. Birth to Sam. His coworker and longtime friend, Tom, waved a hand in front of him. "Are you good? You've been staring at the same detail on that blueprint for the past half hour." Sam blinked, snapping back to the present. "Yeah, just thinking about structural integrity." Tom leaned against his desk, crossing his arms with a look of concern. "Is it the project, or something else? You've been kind of distracted lately." Sam straightened the stack of papers on his desk, organizing his thoughts as he did so. "It's just some things at home. I'm working on it." Tom raised an eyebrow. "Trouble in paradise?" When Sam didn't respond, Tom raised his hands in a no-pressure gesture. "Look, I get it. Relationships aren't always smooth sailing. Just know I'm here if you need to talk." Sam managed a small nod of appreciation, but he wasn't ready to give voice to his suspicions. Saying it out loud would make it too real, and he needed more certainty before taking that step. The day wore on, and Sam resisted the temptation to drive past Linda's office to see if her working lunch was strictly business. Instead, he buried himself in work, pushing forward on the project with an intensity that surprised him. By 6 p.m., he had made significant progress on Kensington Tower, yet his thoughts felt heavier than ever. On his way home, he stopped by a local gourmet market, picking up ingredients for rosemary lemon chicken, Linda's favorite. Cooking had always been their shared hobby, something that brought them together. He hoped this small gesture might spark a sense of connection between them. When he got home, the house seemed emptier than usual. He moved around the kitchen, preparing the meal with practiced precision, finding a small comfort in the familiar routine of chopping, seasoning, and roasting. As the aroma filled the air, he heard the sound of Linda's key in the lock. She was home earlier than expected. His heart skipped a beat as he listened to her footsteps, followed by a short pause, likely spent checking her reflection in the hallway mirror. "Something smells amazing," Linda said as she entered the kitchen, her cheeks slightly flushed and hair loosely waved. She looked refreshed, almost too refreshed. She set down her purse, noticeably keeping it close by, as if guarding something. "I thought we could have dinner together," Sam said lightly, offering her a warm smile. "I made your favorite." "That's sweet." Linda returned his smile briefly, though he noticed a flicker of hesitation in her eyes. "It's been such a long day, nice to come home to something like this." "How was the presentation?" he asked, casually setting the table. "Oh, it went well." She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture Sam recognized as something she did when she felt nervous. "The client liked our concept. We're moving forward with the full proposal." Sam nodded, pouring wine for both of them. They sat down, and he noticed how Linda placed her phone within easy reach, casting occasional glances at it. Her foot tapped lightly under the table, a new habit he'd noticed lately whenever she seemed preoccupied. "So, the Johnston account must be pretty demanding if it's keeping you so busy," he said, breaking the silence. "Are the clients really that particular?" Linda looked up, surprised. "Oh, yes, definitely. They have high expectations." She hesitated for a brief moment, and Sam caught it. "We're all putting in extra hours to make sure it's perfect." Her phone buzzed on the table, lighting up with a new notification. Sam noticed her shift, almost imperceptibly, as she angled the screen away, but he caught a glimpse of the message preview, can't wait to see you again." The words lingered in Sam's mind, each one striking like a sharp, unexpected jolt. He forced himself to keep his expression neutral, even as a sinking feeling settled in his chest. Linda quickly silenced her phone, her face turning away from him as she forced a casual smile. "Just, work stuff. You know how it is with deadlines." "Right," Sam replied, keeping his tone steady, though his heart felt like it was racing. He took a slow sip of his wine, struggling to focus on the taste, but it felt hollow. They finished the meal mostly in silence, the clinking of silverware against their plates the only sound in the room. Sam tried to make casual conversation, but Linda seemed distant, her thoughts elsewhere. He watched her closely, noticing how she glanced at her phone frequently, her expression softening each time a new message appeared. Her foot tapped steadily under the table, a quiet but constant rhythm. As they cleared the dishes, Sam felt a storm brewing inside, an urge to confront her right then and there. But he held back, knowing he needed to wait. He wanted all the pieces in place before he made his move. Later, as Linda excused herself to go over files for an upcoming meeting, Sam watched her retreat into the home office, closing the door softly behind her. The urge to follow her, to demand an explanation, nearly overwhelmed him. But he took a deep breath, reminding himself that this wasn't the right time. That night, as they lay side by side in bed, Sam stared at the ceiling, listening to the gentle hum of the fan. Linda lay with her back to him, her breathing shallow and uneven, not quite the rhythm of someone deeply asleep. The space between them felt immense, a chasm that stretched far beyond the inches that separated them. Sam thought back to the woman he had married over a decade ago, to the promises they'd made and the memories they'd built. How had things come to this? How had they drifted so far apart without him even realizing it? One thought became clear as he lay there in the quiet darkness: tomorrow, he would begin to search for answers. He was done ignoring the signs. The next morning, Sam left for work earlier than usual, parking his car a short distance from Linda's office building in downtown Chicago. The morning bustle of the city provided a strange sense of calm as he sipped his coffee, watching the building's entrance from a discreet distance. He knew this was a risk: if she spotted him, there would be questions. But he was willing to take that chance for clarity. He waited, feeling his heartbeat quicken when he saw Linda's car pull into the lot. She stepped out, smoothing her blouse and adjusting her hair as she walked towards the building. Sam felt a pang in his chest as he watched her, realizing just how much she had perfected her routine. About 20 minutes later, a man Sam didn't recognize approached the building. He held the door open for Linda, who greeted him with a look Sam hadn't seen in years, a mix of warmth and familiarity. This had to be Adam Michaels, the name he'd glimpsed in her messages. Adam was in his early 30s, with a polished, corporate look that made him stand out. Sam had done some research. Adam was a senior project manager at Linda's firm. Over the next few days, Sam continued his observations, his heart sinking with each new detail. Linda's patterns were unmistakable. She would leave for supposed late nights at work, but her car wouldn't be at the office. Her attention to her phone grew nearly obsessive, always keeping it within reach and frequently checking it with a soft smile. She'd grown comfortable, even careless, confident that Sam hadn't noticed. One morning, while Linda was in the shower, Sam unlocked her phone. His hands shook as he scrolled through her messages, the evidence surfacing with each line. There it was, an exchange of texts between Linda and Adam, filled with flirtations and inside jokes, references to their next meet-up. Each message felt like another blow, but Sam kept his composure. He knew he couldn't confront her yet, not until he had the full picture. That evening, Sam kept his emotions in check, watching Linda closely during dinner. She seemed animated, sharing stories about her busy day, and laughing at her own jokes, sneaking quick glances at her phone every few minutes. Each time it buzzed, a subtle smile would tug at the corners of her lips. The confirmation he needed came unexpectedly a few days later. Sam had stopped by a coffee shop near Linda's office when he overheard a conversation between two women seated at a nearby table. "Did you see her with Adam at the company event last Friday?" one of them whispered, clearly cautious of being overheard. They were practically glued to each other. "Adam's notorious for going after women who are married," her friend replied with a knowing smirk. "It's like a thrill for him, almost a game." Sam felt his grip tighten around his coffee cup, anger and sadness mixing in a whirlwind of emotions. But he kept his composure, forcing himself to take steady breaths. That night, he resolved that it was finally time to confront Linda. When Sam returned home, however, Linda's car wasn't in the driveway. Normally, she'd be back by now, and she hadn't mentioned any change of plans. A sinking feeling settled in his stomach as he dialed her number, but it went straight to voicemail. Driven by an instinct he could no longer ignore, Sam climbed back into his car and drove to an Italian bistro Linda had mentioned recently, Ristorante Bellissimo, an upscale, romantic spot in the city known for its ambience and intimate setting. It was the kind of place they had once frequented together, back in better days. But as he approached, he felt a grim anticipation. Through the large windows of the restaurant, he spotted her almost immediately. Linda was seated at a cozy corner booth with Adam, laughing softly as she leaned across the table, her hand resting lightly on his. The sight was like a punch to the gut, a painful image he knew would haunt him. Sam stood outside, his reflection blending with the dim lights inside the restaurant, his heart pounding as he watched them. Every detail, their laughter, her relaxed posture, the look she gave Adam, felt like a betrayal he couldn't unsee. Returning home, Sam felt a cold, resolute calm wash over him. He couldn't afford to confront her impulsively. He wanted to approach this with a clear head, to handle everything precisely. He would wait, gather evidence, and ensure he had control over the situation when the time came. Over the next week, Sam went about his daily routines, meticulously observing Linda's habits and noting her patterns. Each evening, as they lay side by side in bed, the silence between them grew, a chasm filled with secrets she thought she'd hidden. Sam memorized each detail, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. One evening, while Linda was in the shower, Sam picked up her phone from the counter, feeling an eerie sense of calm as he saved Adam's number. He knew he wouldn't confront her just yet. He wanted more, every piece of evidence, every small betrayal, documented and irrefutable. The following day, Sam reached out to a college friend who worked in security. By the end of the day, he had discreetly arranged for cameras to be installed in their home. He needed to see it all, to capture every moment, every word. Linda remained unaware, recounting her exhausting days as she moved about the house, casually checking her phone and leaving briefly for late meetings. But Sam stayed composed, biding his time, letting the pieces fall into place. On a Friday evening, Sam executed the next step of his plan. He made a show of gathering his work materials, letting Linda know he had a late meeting for a new project. She barely looked up as he walked out, mumbling a quick, "good luck." Sam could sense the relief in her tone, the way her shoulders relaxed as soon as he closed the door behind him. Sam parked a few blocks away, watching his phone screen as he monitored the live feed from the hidden cameras. Exactly 45 minutes later, he saw the front door open, and Adam stepped inside, glancing around before heading toward the living room. Sam watched the scene unfold from his car, feeling a mix of anger and sadness as he observed Linda and Adam together in the living room. They embraced, and Adam pulled her close as they shared a quiet conversation, their voices just audible through the hidden microphone Sam had installed. Every touch, every whisper felt like a fresh wound, a reminder of the betrayal happening within his own home. He clenched his fists, fighting the urge to storm inside. But he stayed where he was, reminding himself that he needed undeniable proof. He would wait, gathering every last piece of evidence before confronting her. About an hour later, Sam made his move. He quietly parked his car a few houses down and entered through the side door, making sure to remain silent. The house was still, the only sound a low murmur of voices from the living room. Moving with quiet purpose, Sam stepped into the dimly lit room, his expression unreadable. Linda and Adam looked up, startled. For a moment, no one spoke, the silence thick and charged with the weight of everything left unsaid. Sam. Linda stammered, quickly pulling away from Adam, her face drained of color. Don't let me interrupt, Sam said, his voice calm but cold. Adam's confidence visibly faltered, his initial composure replaced with uncertainty as he glanced between Sam and Linda. Maybe I should just sit down, Sam said quietly, his tone leaving no room for argument. Adam hesitated, then sat, clearly uncomfortable, while Linda stood frozen, guilt evident on her face. Sam took a seat across from them, his gaze fixed on Linda, who couldn't meet his eyes. So, Sam began, keeping his voice steady, this is how you repay the trust we built over the last decade? Linda's face crumpled, her eyes filling with tears. Sam, it's not what you think. Oh, isn't it? Sam let out a bitter laugh. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been lying to me for months, turning our life into a facade while you sneak around with him. Adam shifted uncomfortably, attempting to speak up, but Sam's sharp glare silenced him. Not your turn to talk, he said sternly. I'll get to you soon enough. Linda wiped a tear, her voice breaking. Sam, please, just give me a chance to explain. Sam's gaze didn't soften. I spent weeks watching you lie, inventing excuses for late nights and work lunches, convincing myself I was imagining things. I saw every text, every call, every look you thought I wouldn't notice. And now, seeing you here with him in our home? There's nothing left to explain. Adam looked like he wanted to escape, but he was trapped under Sam's unyielding gaze. Look, I never meant to cause trouble, he mumbled, his tone wavering. Then maybe you should have thought about that before pursuing a married woman, Sam retorted, his voice laced with controlled anger. I have no tolerance for people who think they can just walk into someone else's life and do as they please. Linda's tears began to fall freely as she whispered, Sam, I'm so sorry. But Sam felt no sympathy. He had given her every opportunity, trusted her implicitly, only to be betrayed. This ends now, he said firmly, looking between the two of them. Linda, you'll leave by the end of the week. Take whatever you need, but I want no trace of you here when I come back. Where will I go? She asked, her voice small, almost desperate. That's not my concern anymore, Sam replied, his tone final. You chose this path, and now you can deal with the consequences. With that, Sam stood, giving Adam a final, icy glance. And you, he added, stay away from my life. You've done enough damage. Adam nodded quickly, not daring to look back as he left, leaving Sam and Linda alone in the tense silence. She looked at him one last time, her face a mixture of regret and sorrow, but Sam's expression remained unmoved. Goodbye, Linda. The door closed behind her, and Sam stood alone in the quiet house. For the first time in weeks, he felt a strange sense of relief, a weight lifting as he took in the stillness, the absence of secrets. He poured himself a glass of bourbon, letting the warmth settle as he sank into the armchair Adam had occupied only moments before. This was a new beginning, one he hadn't expected but would embrace on his own terms. Over the following weeks, Sam focused on moving forward. He contacted a lawyer, Rebecca Cohen, who handled the divorce proceedings swiftly and professionally. The house felt empty without Linda, but Sam found solace in the quiet, slowly transforming the space into something that felt entirely his. Rumors circulated at work, but Sam remained calm, letting people speculate. His friend Tom provided a steady presence, offering support without probing for details, sensing that Sam wasn't ready to share the full story. One Saturday afternoon, as he organized paperwork in his home office, Sam received an unexpected message from an unknown number. It was from Linda. Please, can we talk? Just once. I've realized so much, and I just want to explain." Sam stared at the message, his thumb hovering over the screen. After a moment's hesitation, he decided against replying, blocking the number instead. He wasn't interested in hearing any more excuses or pleas for forgiveness. He had already made his decision, and he was moving forward. Days turned into weeks, and Sam began to rebuild his life. He reconnected with old friends, rediscovered hobbies he'd set aside, and started spending more time outdoors. For the first time in months, he felt as if he could breathe again, free from the weight of mistrust and doubt. One evening, Tom invited him out for drinks, urging him to take a break from the routine and enjoy a change of scenery. Reluctantly, Sam agreed, knowing he couldn't avoid socializing forever. They met at the Copper Vine, a cozy wine bar downtown with warm lighting and a laid-back atmosphere. The place was filled with easy laughter and conversation, the kind of light-hearted energy Sam hadn't felt in a long time. He and Tom found a quiet corner, sharing memories and stories over whiskey. At one point, Sam noticed a woman at the bar, casually reading a book as she sipped a glass of wine. She seemed comfortable and unbothered by the noise around her, focused on her novel. Every now and then, she would glance up, her eyes scanning the room. When her gaze met his, she gave a small, kind smile, a simple gesture, but it stirred something in Sam, a faint reminder that life held possibilities beyond his recent pain. "Go talk to her," Tom nudged him, chuckling. "What's the worst that could happen?" Sam laughed, shaking his head. "Not tonight. I think I've had enough change for a while." They clinked their glasses, and Sam felt a newfound peace settle over him. He didn't need to rush into anything. For now, he was content to focus on himself and rediscover the things that brought him joy. In the following months, Sam continued embracing his fresh start. He threw himself into work and soon secured a high-profile project, which brought new challenges and rewards. He found joy in cooking again, experimenting with new recipes and filling the house with the scents of fresh ingredients and spices. The home he once shared with Linda began to transform, with new decor, a few pieces of furniture, and even a collection of indoor plants he'd taken an unexpected liking to. Each change felt like a small step toward building a life that was entirely his own. On a crisp autumn evening, Sam received a final message from Linda, sent from another unknown number. "I'll always regret what I did. I hope one day you'll forgive me." He read the message, letting himself feel a quiet sense of closure as he absorbed the words. But he knew he didn't need to reply. The past was behind him, and he had no desire to revisit it. He deleted the message, feeling lighter, as though a weight he hadn't realized he was carrying had finally been lifted. By the time winter arrived, Sam felt like a new person. He had goals, dreams, and a resilience he hadn't known he possessed. The betrayal that once felt like an ending had become a catalyst for growth, pushing him toward a life of clarity and independence. On a cold December night, Sam stood by his living room window, watching the city lights twinkle against the dark sky as snow began to dust the streets. He raised a glass to himself, reflecting on the journey he had taken, the unexpected turns and painful revelations. The path hadn't been easy, but he had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready to embrace the future. For the first time in a long time, he felt a deep sense of peace, confident that he was exactly where he was meant to be.